Thank you. My name is Tom Sanchez, and I've had many titles working for the city, but today I'm the director of investing. Well, I've worked with planning and economic development for about 35 years, so I do kind of know a lot about a lot of things, and so I hopefully will be helpful for you tonight. The functions that we perform, and I'll put them in general categories, we have a planning function that we perform, and that function is some of the things you'll see about small area plans, zoning issues, particular traffic kinds of, like the corridor, different kinds of functions in which people are talking about their environment, and what are the kinds of regulatory things we need to do in order to help, I don't want to say control, but in a sense, guide that environment. So we have those planning functions. Then we have an economic development function, which involves a couple of things. One is where you see we're trying to attract businesses to St. Paul, large businesses or small businesses, where we're trying to get businesses on corridors, where we work with community development corporations on corridors to try to get investment to occur on corridors. So we have that end of it. The other end is where we try to do some things to encourage employment. Now, we used to do a lot of employment. We don't today do as much, but we try to encourage through who gets hired, all the financing we provide, the employment of others. That's a real key thing, and I'll talk a little bit more about that when I talk about some of our housing issues that we have. The other part of this is what we do with housing development, and how we try to get as much as possible with the few dollars that we have, try to leverage that as much as possible to try to get employment, to try to get safe and sound housing, to try to get investment back into the neighborhood. And through all of those methods, we try to, in some way, touch the economic environment of our city, whether it's small or whether it's large, employers, small contractors, individual homeowners, or large company owners. We try to touch all of those. We have, as you may know, historic preservation. We do work in historic preservation in terms of trying to protect some of those assets that we have around the city. So you may have heard about some of those functions. In a broad sense, our department touches a lot of different kinds of things. We get blamed for a lot of things that we don't do, but fortunately we do a lot of good things, and I'm proud of those things. I'm not sure how many...
Let's stop right here. Okay. Let me have a couple of our publishers engage scrutiny, and let me ask Adolfo Cardona, and to begin with, because you're familiar with Rita. You are a director, right? You're a member.
I'm a member.
Check it.
Hello. Yes, I'm a member of Rita, and I echo what Chris was just saying a minute ago, that Rita does have a number of services and programs in place to assist a number of businesses here in the west side of the community, St. Paul. But I was just wondering, in listening to Mayor speaking about challenging times and seizing opportunities, I wonder if Chris can expand on how Rita can assist entrepreneurs, not just seize opportunities, but finding or identifying the right opportunities. Because, I mean, we can provide opportunities for just about everybody, but how do we know that that's going to be the right opportunity and they're not headed into a wrong situation? Do we have anything? Do you think about that ahead of time?
You know, that's a good question, Adolfo. And yes, we think about that all the time. And one of the things that we talk about at Rita is that oftentimes when we have a micro entrepreneur who comes to us and wants to start a business, oftentimes the best advice to give them is to tell them not to do it. And we joke about that a little bit, but it's much better to convince somebody that it's not a good investment to sink the $20,000 that they've spent or that they've saved for over the last 10 years than to spend it in something that's not going to work. And we provide those types of services at Rita for West Side businesses. We have a support division, if you will, of our work. We help folks put together cash flow analysis. We help folks look at their financials. We help folks draft business plans, and that's a very important part of our work. And it's one of the ways that we've enjoyed such strong relationships with the local banks, because they know that if Rita's involved, there's somebody on the ground floor doing a lot of that outreach and connecting with businesses in that way. There are also a number of organizations that do that work on a citywide level, and I know the Latino Economic Development Center is here today. There's an African Development Center. There are CDCs, as I mentioned, that operate in other parts of the city that provide those types of training opportunities. And oftentimes, if you participate in those types of trainings, there are free or reduced cost services that come with that. Accounting services, legal services, marketing services. You sort of become a member of our community once you participate in some of these trainings.
David Glass.
Good evening. Chris, before I ask you my two questions, I'd like to just say that I'm not here representing the circle per se. I'm not sure why the circle couldn't make it. However, I was asked to sit in. I'm the executive director of the American Indian Economic Development Fund and also the Turtle Island PTAC. However, I have two questions for you, Chris. Typically, minority communities, American Indian community, are representative of the communities of poverty. And so when we come forward to try to obtain business loans, we're saddled with bad credit. It's just inherent. Communities of poverty come to the table with bad credit. And so we find it somewhat challenging at times to work with lenders, community lenders, large banks, and obtaining loans, and also working with SBA process. So I'm wondering how you find that working within your organization, and if you could also talk a little bit about the grants that you have for small businesses, and what size, what is the amount of them, and what do you have to meet in terms of requirements to receiving those?
I'd be happy to. In response to the first part of your question, we struggle with that all the time. I can't sit up here and say that I have the answers to help many of the folks in our communities get the credit that we'd like to see them get. We work very closely with the Latino community, and we deal with those same issues. We also deal with immigration issues, and that ends up being a huge roadblock with many of our financial partners. I will have nothing against the large banks, and we work with some of the larger banks, but I found that some of the community banks are a little bit more willing to look outside of the box when it comes to some of those things. And whether it's a credit score or business financials or what have you, that's been one of the avenues that we've taken. And we have those strong relationships with our local banks on the west side. And oftentimes, if organizations like RITA can say, hey, we'll help with the loan servicing, we'll help with the training, we'll help with one-on-one meetings, be it every month or every couple of months with the entrepreneurs, that's taking that responsibility out of the hands of the bankers who are trying to do other things. But it's also helping to ensure that their loans are going to get paid back. And so we can get around some of that stuff, but those are roadblocks. And even in our community programs, the programs that don't involve a bank partner, some of the loan funds that we have a credit process. And so you still have to get through that one way or the other. In response to your second, tell me again the second part.
With regards to grants?
Oh, the grant stuff, yeah. The grants that we have right now at the West Side Business level, they come from a program from the city that Tom knows very well called the STAR program. And we applied for funds from the STAR program every year. I don't think we've ever been denied funding from that program. STAR stands for Sales Tax Area Revitalization. And if you don't know this, and I can explain it. In the city of St. Paul, there's an extra 0.5% sales tax, and part of that extra 0.5% sales tax is given back to the communities in the form of STAR grants and loans to help our local businesses survive and flourish. And we are allocated some of those funds each year. And our grants right now are small grants. They're up to $5,000, and they're specifically for business facade projects. So if you need a new sign on your business, if you need a new entryway to your business, if you need new windows to your business, those are the types of things that our money is good for. And we're really interested in supporting our businesses, but we're also interested in creating commercial corridors that are vibrant, that people feel safe in, that people feel comfortable shopping in, and that's what some of that facade stuff does. There's a one-to-one match in our program, so to access the entire $5,000 grant, it has to be a $10,000 project. You would pay $5,000, we would pay the other $5,000. I'm sure other communities have similar initiatives, but they may be slightly different.
And so